What's going on, guys? My name is Tom Boley, and I'm a fishing YouTuber in northern Wisconsin, probably specializing in walleye stuff, and today I'm taking over the Piscifun YouTube channel, and we're going to be doing some walleye fishing. It's the middle of the day, it's early summer out, and we're going to go into one of my absolutely favorite, deadly effective ways to catch fish this time of year. We are fishing leeches, we are fishing slip bobbers, and we're going to get it done today. It's one of my absolute favorite ways to fish. Works really all early summer and into the midsummer period long. It's very simple and very effective. So we're gonna break down some rigging stuff, we're gonna break down where I like to slip bobber, and hopefully catch a bunch of walleyes. And it is an absolutely gorgeous day. Middle of the day, it's probably gonna be a little bit slower than it was this morning, but we're still gonna get out, catch a whole bunch of walleyes, and go to into some of the specifics on this super easy technique to do. So stay tuned, we gotta blast off to the first spot, catch some fish. Fish on right away. Pulled up to a nice little pod on side imaging. I think we got a nice walleye on. Look at that guy. Not a super big one, but we'll take it for the first minute of fishing. Uh oh, we got stuff happening here. All right, real quickly, I'm gonna take this fish. We're not keeping him, but I wanna get him in the live well because we got another bobber down. And hooked up. This feels like another good one. I guess that fish was unhooked. I could have just thrown it back in the water, huh? This is gonna be another nice walleye for sure. Oh yeah, look at that one. A little better than the first one. Oh, he's angry. Angry walleye. Well, that was quick. Let's hope the rest of our time out here goes like that. Let's scoop him under this rod. Grab my net. Come here, buddy. He's a nice fish. There we go. That simple. I got 3 bobbers out, so I got 1 left out now. That did not take long. And this is the kind of quality you can expect. I think a lot of people have this misconception that slip bobbering can be like a small fish thing. That is just 100% inaccurate. All right, look at that one. That's the bigger of the 2. Quality fish right there, probably about a 21, 22 incher. We'll let him go, he's in great shape. See you later, buddy. I'll show you the other one. Here's the first one we caught, nice eater size fish. A little 17, 18 incher there. We'll let him go. There you go. That's how you want to start the day, 2 at one time. All right, so I want to talk about rigging real quick, because if you rig incorrectly, it makes this incredibly more difficult to do, incredibly less efficient, and you just catch less fish. So I fish a lot of pretty clear water, so it kind of varies. My rig's kind of tweaked a little bit, but basically the same setup's gonna work everywhere where you want to catch walleyes. And the important parts of this rig is, number 1, rod and reel. This is the Piscifun Carbon X 2000. This is one of my absolute favorite reels. It's actually my favorite, like, all around spinning reel that I put on pretty much every single one of my walleye rods. And I have this spooled up with 10-pound braid. It's nice to have a quicker reel. It's obviously an incredibly light, incredibly smooth reel, but it's nice to have a quick reel for picking up a lot of the slack when that bobber goes down to pick up line quick. But I spool up with 10-pound braid, and I run all that down to my slip bobber. Now, there's 2 kinds of slip bobbers that you want to use. Both have brass grommets in the top. This is like your Thill Pro style bobber. It's got a little lead weight right here. This is a good one. The other good one, which I use a ton, is the Thill Wobble Bobber in a 3/8 ounce size. It's got brass grommets in both ends, right? And both bobbers work great. And basically the way a slip bobber works, if you're not familiar with it, what you have on your line is you have a bobber stop that goes on your line, right? And it's this little knot right here. You can buy them pretty much any tackle store have them, and that is your depth set, right? So if I want to be fishing like 10 feet down in 13 feet of water, for example, I'll put this 10 feet from my bait, and I just kind of guess it based off the length of the rod, right? And I'll kind of show you that here in a second. But then right above your bobber, you have a bead, then obviously the bobber, and then I like to put an 1/8 ounce slider weight in there right above a swivel, and then I run a 3 to 4 foot lead off that in clear water. Now if you're fishing dirtier water, 1.5 foot, 2 feet will do fine. And this is 10-pound fluorocarbon is what I like to run here. Like I said, you can go heavier on that if you're fishing very dirty water, but this clear stuff, pretty much 8 or 10 pounds what I run. And then what I run is I run a fireball jig, or one of these live bait style jigs, right? And it looks just like that right there. And basically having this extra weight, that 1/8 ounce slider plus this jig, it gets my presentation down very quick and gets it around fish. The other thing it does if you run a plain hook instead of this jig is it's very difficult to cast it like into the wind or sideways to the wind. What'll happen, that hook will kind of come around and it'll go like this and you'll end up all knotted up and not fishing. Having a jig on there keeps that presentation much cleaner, right? It also has an extremely high hookup ratio. You see the gap on that hook? That is a very wide gap for a jig hook, and that's what you want. You don't want a jig that has a very small gap in there because it makes it much more difficult to hook and hold, especially larger fish. And this is leech time of year for me. I love running leeches in this kind of late May through June time frame. Leeches are definitely, and you definitely want to be getting the jumbo leeches, right? So next thing we'll talk about is kind of the rod you want to be putting this on. And I put this on a 7+ foot. This is a 7.5 foot medium light. I would say a medium light or a light would probably be your best friend here. And you want that light action or that softer tip from a medium light or a light. You wouldn't want to do this with like a medium heavy, that's too stiff. But what you want is you want a lot of play in the tip of that rod. And the reason for that is it helps you lob slip bobbers out there, number one, without throwing your bait off all the time. And number two, the most important part is when you set the hook on a slip bobber, you want to load that tip up right before you set. Otherwise you want to be feeling the weight of that fish. And the reason for that is you can imagine you have a slip bobber that's 20 yards out there, right? The bobber goes down and there's a walleye on the end of it, right? Well, your line's going out like this to the bobber, which is now a few feet underwater, and then there's an angle going down to the fish. So you want to be basically when you right before you set the hook on a slip bobber, you want to reel that angle in the bobber out of your line. You want to take your line like this, if your bobber's right here, and make it even with the fish. And if your rod is too stiff, you're gonna load that tip up and put too much pressure on that fish, and he's gonna drop it before you set the hook. So being able to load that tip on a medium light or a light action rod before you set the hook, absolutely crucial. Now, one other thing that I will say, like I talked about setting depth here, today I'm fishing a lot of like 15 to like 12 feet of water. Now this is a 7.5 foot rod, so we'll call from right here at the reel to right here is a foot, right? So let's just call this a 6.5 foot distance from right here to right there. And to simplify it, we'll just call it 7 feet, right? So I know that if my slip bobber knot is right at the reel and my jig on a tight line is also right at the reel, that's about 14, 13 feet of line out, right? So most of the time I like to be fishing a couple of feet off bottom. So if I'm in 16 feet, 14 works good. If I'm on fishing 10 feet of water, what I'll do is I'll take that knot and I'll slide it up several feet, right? So now I know I'm set about, 9 feet down in 10 or 11 feet of water, right? So it's very easy to kind of calculate how deep you are based off a rod length from your reel to the tip of your rod. And that's kind of how I adjust on the fly. Fish on. Feels like a decent one. Just saw that pod, cast it out. Boom. Leech in a slip bobber is one of those things you should not be able to put it in front of a lot of fish without getting bites. Another nice northern Wisconsin walleye. We'll take them all day long like that. There's other things you can probably be doing right now to catch fish, but there's nothing as effective as just simply putting a bait in front of fish and getting a bite. A lot of times I like to think about, what's the best kind of bait as far as how many times you got to put that thing in front of a fish to get bit. And with a slip bobber and a leech, it's pretty much, if you can get it around them set up properly, you're probably getting bit. Gotta grab my pliers quick. It's a beautiful northern Wisconsin walleye right there. Beautiful summer day out. Too cool. We're gonna let him go. Now, where do you fish a slip bobber? This is also very important. You really fish anywhere there's walleyes, but there's specific situations where slip bobbers excel over other things. And you can imagine fishing a slip bobber, right? You're not covering an enormous amount of water. You're for the most part casting out, and you're anchored or spot locked or sitting still, and you're fishing a small area, right? That's when slip bobbering is the most effective. So I slip bobber weeds and I slip bobber rocks. And basically what you want to see is the same thing. You want to see a lot of fish in a very small area. So if I'm running my side imaging and I see a big glob of walleyes off one of the sides of my boat, and you know, all those walleyes are real tight to a specific weed edge, or there's a cluster of them in a pocket or off a weed point, great spot to slip bobber, right? The other time I do a lot of slip bobbering is on rock humps. And a lot of times you can have a very big rock hump that'll kind of have one like sweet spot, a little high knob on like the outside tip of it or something like that. And a lot of times that's where those fish congregate. So it's a great tool for picking apart these smaller spots where there is fish on a larger spot. Otherwise, they're great for just fishing that smaller rock hump, right? Where it's, you know, a big basin and then a rock hump that comes up to 14. You know, anchor the boat off the side, throw a few slip bobbers back and that are down like 10, 12 feet, and you're gonna be in business. Slip bobber is not a good option if you're trying to cover a large, you know, if it's a big, huge weed flat and you're trying to cover the whole thing and pick walleyes out of it. Not a productive way to fish, because you can't fish that slip bobber very fast. It's a cast and wait and kind of, you know, monkey around with it type of deal, right? It just is not a good cover water tool. It's a great tool for picking fish out of a very small area, and that's what we're doing today. We're fishing a lot of these weed edges. We're looking for those fish clumped up on an edge, and we're casting bobbers to them, maybe getting 2, 3 out of each spot, and then we're moving on. Ooh. Too much fun. Wind's picking up a little, gets those bobbers rocking. It's definitely a nice fish here. Oh, big head shakes. Oh, this is a pike. Oh no. Chunker walleyes. Definitely a netter here. I'm gonna back the drag off for a second. This is why I love fishing clear water. You watch them fight down there. Anybody who says walleyes don't fight has not caught many walleyes. Look at it, it's pulling drag right next to me. See it going down. That is the fish we're looking for sure. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. Northwoods Gold right there. It's about a 25 incher, I'd say. 24 and a half, 25 right in there. Built. Just stocky, chunky, wide back. We're gonna let him go. Too cool. Well, that is gonna do it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching. Slip bobbering's an absolutely killer way to fish, and no matter how many fish I've caught doing different techniques, it is always fun watching a bobber go down, and it's obviously an incredibly effective way to fish. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna do some more fishing the rest of the day, hopefully catch a whole bunch of more fish, but thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later.